under 44 kilometres to go, and then it's going to rolling all the way to the finish. So this is going to be a good stage, and we're going to see the GC contenders go toe-to-toe.
Yeah, we have some very long climbs in Granada, some of the longest climbs in Andalucía in southern Spain, in actual fact. The next of those climbs is the Puerto de Gorafi, which is a second category climb. Yeah, effectively, the classified point is 8.3k, but the climb itself lasts for about 23 kilometres, so a really long one. Going into today, Alessandro Covi, our race leader in the yellow jersey, had 8 seconds over Superman López, Miguel Angel López, to give him his full and proper name, of course, riding for Astana, Kazakhstan team. 2 big losers from that general classification. Simon Clark went into the day in 3rd, and Dries Devenens, the Belgian, for Quickstep Alpha Vinyl, was in 4th. Now, those two, as far as I can see, are in that second group. I've certainly seen the green jersey of Clark because he's wearing the points jersey on behalf of Alessandro Covi, who leads in that competition. Now they're the big losers, along with Emmanuel Buchmann and, as Brian mentioned, Ibai Azumendi as well, and Sylvain Moniquet also missing this front group. So those riders all moving down on our virtual general classification. Of course, we still have a bit of time to play with 56k yet to go. The riders making their way northeastward all the way through Granada to finish on the outskirts of Baza, right on the edge of the Sierra de Baza, which is the mountain range just north of the Sierra Nevada. I do wish we'd been able to bring you shots from earlier, or wider shots from earlier, going across the edge of the Sierra Nevada, because it's the slightly cloudier conditions today, meaning we're not quite seeing everything. There we are seeing Simon Clark, though. A zoom up on him wearing the green jersey, as I say, looking after that for Alessandro Covi. He's missed this one, Brian.
I'm not too sure we call it a miss. It's maybe not having the legs, because if you had the legs, you'd be in that front group. Over these 2 first category climbs earlier on today, it's pure and simple. If you've got the form, then you would make that front group. I can only think that maybe Simon Clark hasn't had the best of winters. You know, he can get up there for 1 or 2 days, but when we get into the 4th stage, it's been up and down, quite hard racing. That maybe he just doesn't have that kind of depth yet, where he is in condition, and rightly so. When his team, his World Tour team, comes to an end, and he's looking for another team, and luckily he got that opportunity with Israel Premier Tech, and he's capable of being in this front group. So I don't think it's just missed. I just think that maybe he's suffered a little bit in the early stages of today's stage.
Well, the Ecuadorian rider on the front in the green of Caja Rural is Jefferson Cepeda. Very exciting young rider. Breakaway specialist, good at jumping the gaps between groups. I've commentated on him quite a few times before. He's a fascinating one to watch. Does not hold back. Doesn't surprise me at all to see him in this breakaway. He's a good punchy climber as well. Wout Poels the next of those to roll through. Let me give you the full roll call, folks, of the 15 riders that we have in this leading group that have 2 minutes 25 on the yellow jersey. They are our defending champion and the only former winner of this race in the whole peloton, in this peloton anyway, Miguel Angel López of Astana. He has with him as teammates Alexei Lutsenko and Harold Tejada, the Colombian. And then for Movistar we have Ivan Sosa, no surprise there, the Colombian making the split on the first category climb. Jonathan Narvaez and Carlos Rodriguez are the 2 Ineos Grenadiers riders. Simon Yates, the British rider, is there for Bike Exchange Jayco. There he is going through on the front, tucking himself down. Jack Haig, the Aussie, is there along with 2 teammates for Bahrain Victorious. One of those is Damiano Caruso, and the other is Jack Haig. Caruso just going through there on the front of your picture as well. Mauri van Sevenen is the next to roll through on the front with the white sleeves blue jersey, the young Belgian for Quickstep Alpha Vinyl. And then the red jersey you can see back there as well is Stef Kras, the other Belgian, in the Lotto Soudal colours. Ben O'Connor is there, having just rolled through on the front as well. The tall figure in the white with the brown, the chocolate brown shorts, easily recognisable, of course, of Agi Dessert Citroën team. And then, as I mentioned, Jefferson Cepeda of Ecuador and the Caja Rural team. And Christian Rodriguez, the rider who leads the best Andalucian prize overall and riding high in general classification as well, the Spaniard. He started the day in 7th place on general classification, so as it stands, he'll be moving up somewhere near that top 5 if it were to stay like this.
Yes, a good breakaway. Just to add to that, I just counted them there and saw another rider that wasn't initially given. Mikel Landa is in that front group, so there are 16 riders in the league group representing 10 teams. And the 10 teams, you know, the most riders that are in this front group of 16 are Bahrain victorious with Landa, Haig, Caruso and Wout Poels. Next is Astana. They've got 3 riders, López, Lusenko and Tejeda. And 2 riders there for Ineos Grenadiers of Narvaez and Rodriguez. So the numbers are with Bahrain victorious, Ineos Grenadiers and Astana, Kazakhstan, but everybody else is isolated. So, you know, when you're in this situation, you see numbers there. See Simon Yates on the right hand side there of our screen, Van Sevenant just to come up, Ben O'Connor's there. You have to think a little bit smart about it because, you know, other kind of teams have got numbers and they will certainly use numbers, and I'm sure that the pressure is on Bahrain victorious to deliver. The 4 riders and 16, so they represent, you know, a high majority of the front group. So I would think that, you know, looking at the general classification and also looking at potentially the stage win as well. So, yeah, 4 riders and 16. But then last year's winner, López, is there. You know, he's virtually the race leader, started only in 2nd place at 8 seconds. So still over 50 kilometres to go. I'm sure we'll see some real hard racing as we start to head in towards the finish, because, you know, these riders will not want to come in and sprint it out. They're looking for time gaps today. And this will be a good shake-up in the general classification. We already have 16 riders. Not everybody, of course, in this front group is close to the general classification. When you consider Mikel Landa's over 4 minutes down, Caruso also over 4 minutes down. So they'll be the kind of workhorses. They'll be potentially, you know, working a little bit harder than the others to make sure that, you know, they try and win the day.
Well, if this very select elite leading group were to survive to the finish in Baza with this kind of time gap, Miguel Angel López will be moving at the end of the Queen stage into the race lead. He already had the race lead at this stage the last time this race, last year when it ran in May. Back to its traditional slot now. Steph Crass would be moving up to 2nd and Jack Haig up into 3rd. But a lot more to play for, and certainly, Brian, I couldn't see this group coming to the line all together. Not this group, this is the chasing group, of course, our front group. Matteo Trentin is the Italian for UAE Team Emirates on the front. And Trentin combining with Jan Polans, the Slovenian rider, to see what they can do for their yellow jersey leader, Alessandro Covi, who's ridden so well so far, all 3 of the first stages. If you are just joining us on this Saturday for stage 4 of this race, let me quickly talk you through what's happened so far. The uphill finish in Isnacha on Wednesday for stage 1 was won by Rune Heregods of Belgium, who took over the race lead, of course. But behind him, Alessandro Covi was attacking and looking really good from the chasing peloton, who went into that final rise up to the top in Isnaha with about 90 seconds lead. Covi looked very impressive. The next day, he did exactly the same thing, but from the leading group. And the only rider who could get anywhere near him was Miguel Angel López as they went up the cobbled, steep slopes to the top of Alcalá La Real. And then yesterday, as we've previewed with you, Magnus Sheffield, the American, jumping away from, once again, a very select leading group. Many of these riders were in it. A little crash on the last corner just inside 3K, so it didn't affect the general classification, but just gave rise to Magnus Sheffield being able to clip off the front, and the Ineos Grenadiers youngster took the first win of his pro career.
But just actually looking at the update in the front group there, and we're going in the information we've got. I just mentioned that there was 16 riders in that front group, but I just noticed that there was only one rider from Ineos. Originally we were given Narvaez and Rodriguez, but it looks as if Rodriguez is the only rider left there. They had, of course, won the stage yesterday. So 15 riders in this front group now, Jess, with only one rider, and that's their GC contender Rodriguez for Ineos Grenadiers.
Now there is Rodriguez at the back there. Carlos Rodriguez, I should be clear. We do have both of the Andalucian Rodriguez riders. Not brothers, not related at all, but both from this region and both riding high in the Ruta del Sol. There's the first of them. Christian Rodriguez riding for Total Energies with the white top on, and right on the back of the string, the super talented Carlos Rodriguez, who seems to have jumped straight into elite level racing, doesn't he, Brian? We commentated on him together, I think it was, in the Tour de l'Avenir last year, the Tour de France for youngsters, under 23 specifically, and he was very impressive in that, but he seems to have settled into the pro ranks very comfortably.
Yeah, he has indeed, and I'm just going to update again. I've just counted 14, and I've just noticed, because I was really wondering why Lotto Soudal were riding at the fronts. Steph Crass is not in this front group. Steph Crass started today at 10 seconds in 5th place in general classification, so apologies for that. But well, we're going in information we're getting from the event, and just looking on our screens, and we can clearly see there's only 14 riders here, no Lotto Soudal, and that's why they are represented at the front. Initially there were 2 riders from Ineos, but just before we came on air, it's clearly obvious that both the riders were dropped and moved back, so only 14 riders in the front. So it's López, Lusenko and Tejeda for Astana in the kind of light blue. Sosa's there for Movistar. Ineos Grenadiers have Rodriguez, Simon Yates there for Bike Exchange, Landa, Haig, Caruso and Paul's there for Bahrain Victorious in the red. Van Sevenant for Quick Step Alpha Vinyl, and also Ben O'Connor is in there for AG2R Citroën in the kind of white kit, and Martin Rodriguez for Total Energies with Cepeda for Caja Rural.
Well, that is Sylvain Moniquet, the Belgian rider for Lotto Soudal, and that's why, well spotted, Brian. Steph Crass not there, so no Lotto Soudal riders in that front group. And there's the yellow jersey. Not looking too stressed, but as you say, not with the legs today to be in that leading group. And it kicked off on that super long climb, the very, very steep section of the Alto del Perche. I have a good friend, Ismail, who lives in Granada, and he messaged me overnight to say the start and the finish of that climb are particularly steep, really, really steep, and it looks like that's where the damage was done in the splitting off of this group, and then it being consolidated over the long 20k climb of the Puerto de Blancares, which came after it. 2 first cat climbs that, once again, it's another one of these stages where we chop away at the peloton early on with some big climbs, and we're served up with what's left, who then battle out the end of the stage. We were mentioning, weren't we, Brian, just before we came on air, how I personally, I think that makes for a really exciting race, because you then whittle down the best climbing favourites immediately and then leave them with 50, 60, 70k to play with. Unfortunately for our viewers at home, it doesn't make the best television, because at races at this level we tend to join them for the last 2 hours, and by that point the selection has already been made.
Yeah, if you turned it in its head, you'd be riding the breakaway, would go away, then the GC contenders would battle it out in the final of the stage. But like you just said, it all kind of happened in the first part of the stage. Now, 14 of the strongest riders in the race are in the front group, and they have got a long, long way to ride. And sometimes, if you saw a little bit in the run-in yesterday, who is going to ride And with 4 riders in the group of 14, then Bahrain victorious, it says it's on them to ride, but it looks as if everybody's quite interested to move up in the general classification. But also add into the fact, I know we're talking about López at 8 seconds, but you know, when you look down, I'm just going to quickly read through them. López is at 8 seconds, Lutsenko's at 40, Tejeda's at 21 seconds, Sosa's at 10 seconds, 10 seconds for Rodriguez, 19 seconds for Simon Yates, 10 seconds for Jack Haig, 16 seconds for Walt Pauls, 19 seconds for Ben O'Connor, 25 seconds for Van Zevenant, and Martin Rodriguez at 10 seconds. So, pretty much with no time bonuses, it only needs small gaps to lead the race. So, you know, that's why I think this group of 14's kind of working well, purely because that they know they don't want anybody else coming in. They're already kind of moving up. A few riders are not in this group. We've already mentioned one, Steph Crass, the yellow jersey's not there, VIVO, Simon Clark, so they're already moving up. But because you could pretty much throw a blanket over most of them in the general classification, you're only talking about a matter of a handful of seconds. So what we're going to see is, you know, more kind of riding to keep that gap to this group. They don't want this group coming back, and I don't think it is going to come back anyway. But we will see, you know, them trying to kind of beat each other up coming in towards the finish. So we're going to see a really nice finish, and it's not going to be on a big mountain. It's going to be on rolling, which I think is good racing roads, and we're going to see it a bit more tactical. And it's going to be a really interesting run-in towards the finish. It's not as if, you know, we look at this run-in and there's a climb, it's a hilltop finish or a climb towards the finish, and, you know, the GC contenders will kind of battle it out. No, it won't come down to that. Potentially, it might not be the strongest man in the breakaway it's going to win today, because it will get very tactical, and that's where I think it's going to be of real interest. You know, I think with the Bahrain victorious having 4 there, who's their man going to be? Who are they going to look at? Who are they going to position there? They can't position everybody there. So I think possibly it was, you know, the races to get in that front group we already kind of missed earlier on in the stage. But I think now that the middle part of this stage maybe not as exciting to watch. But let's see how it unfolds in the last kind of 20 kilometres, because that's where the GC battle will begin, and it's not going to be on big mountain roads, it's going to be on rolling roads, which is great for racing.
Well, we have about 5k left to go of this climb, the Puerto de Gorafe, and we're eating our way into the Gorafe region as well, which is a sort of desert landscape in the foothills of the Sierra Baza, right on end of that chasing group, and getting some bottles as well from his teammates. Our leading group are going to be getting very close to the very top of this, because there's a few flat sections in between, and one of them we can see our chasing group on right now before they get to the top of the classification. The mountains competition is going to change a little bit today too, because John Barrenetxea is not here in the leading group, and he leads that competition with a healthy margin of 9 points over Xavier Isasa, riders who've been in our breakaways the first 2 days. The first category climb, it was Miguel Angel López taking maximum points ahead of Lutsenko. At the second one, though, it was Alexei Lutsenko taking maximum points on the first category climb as well, and he's now moved up to 3rd place in the King of the Mountains competition. So if he can score highly here, he may well move into the lead of the King of the Mountains, which would be a nice fillip for him on the podium. $265 watts currently, our yellow jersey race leader, putting out on the wheel, being asked by the moto to give a wave as well, I think, at that point. Probably the last thing he'd want right now, I'd have thought, Brian. But a nice long straight road like that will give us a good a good eyesight of where they are.
This front group, it's not going to come back, but the questions I've got now is, with so many riders so close together in this front group, and when you look at the numbers, you know, Stanov got 3 and Bahrain victorious have got 4. if you wait to be attacked, if they start attacking each other, because wherever Barry and Victoria start attacking, I'm sure that Astana are going to market each, it's going to happen. In your mind, you're starting to think, well, if they've got numbers, they're going to chase. But if you wait until they start dictating the race in towards the finish, then you're always going to be in the back foot. If you're a single rider, you have to choose what attacks you go with and what riders you want to follow. Because if you make a mistake, you've not got any teammates to help you. You're pretty much on your own. And we might see some alliances happen if Astana and Barry and Victoria start to go on the attack and alliances happen. You have to help each other. But it might be a case where you might want to instigate it. Just hit them when they're least expecting it. And hopefully an Astana, Barry rider, maybe another couple of riders come up to you and then that's it. So there'll be a lot in the minds of these riders. Do they wait? Do they initiate things? And if they initiate things, then they've got a good chance. Because if you go all in for an attack and take a Barry and an Astana rider with you, maybe two other riders, then you're happy with that. But if you wait, then you've got to have to choose who you follow.
A lovely shot from road level for us, perhaps not for the riders though. Our artistic host broadcaster's lead motorbike there, camera motorbike, doing his best to get some arty shots in amongst the barren desert of the Gurafe. Riders not overly happy with it. There we go. And there is the look up to the tail end, telephoto style, the tail end of our leading group of 14 riders. And there's a look back from the helicopter, back to that, well, I'm calling them a chasing group. It's the remnants of the peloton. 122 riders started in Cuya Vega this morning of the 141 who started right back on Wednesday in Ubrique. So we've lost a few on the way. We lost a couple of whole teams due to COVID, not necessarily all having COVID, but COVID cases within their teams. That being the Gazprom, Roosevelt and Human Powered Health, both those teams not starting yesterday. It does seem a fairly even spread of recent variants of COVID making their way through the pro peloton. We do hope and keep fingers crossed that, of course, the riders will make a good recovery and the team staff as well who are involved, but that we can have them back racing as soon as possible. The mountains you can see on the horizon there are the Sierra de Baza in the National Park. We're headed right that way right now, going through the plains of Gurafe, and we head northward. At that point we're kind of lining up for Baza and the finish before we go back to the Negratin Reservoir, going northwards and then turn eastwards in a very snaking, twisting road that brings us back into Baza. A fairly technical run-in, Brian. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the finish yet, but as we enter Baza we come in from the northwestern corner, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've got about 6 turns to bring us to the finish, I think. Not too tight, but it's an urban environment, and we've seen already this week how that can cause problems, not least yesterday.
Yeah, luckily there's only a group of 14, and I can't see the 14 riders coming into the finish together. It's quite, slightly downhill, flattish finish. But you're right, it is a little bit technical, and I'd be, maybe slightly worried about it if it was a bunch finish, but it's not going to be a bunch finish, and I think, they'll be, this front group will be coming in and, kind of ones and twos as they start to get hit out. But it's when they're going to start. Do you want to instigate it? Do you want to, put yourself in the back foot? And, that's where your sports directors communicate with them. What do you want to do? And we might see as this gap is kind of holding. We just come over the top of that climb there. It didn't really, because the only person that could take that jersey away from Baranechia is Lusenko. So I'm just waiting for the confirmation over the top of the climb there. We never, the camera didn't really kind of show us because they were just kind of rolling through. But, Lusenko never darted out. I don't think that's in his mind. He's just been there getting the points pretty much. And I think it's more on trying to win the race, trying to win the stage, and make sure that López is in the right place. But then again, Lutsenko has already shown some good form, and he's at 40 seconds. But you have to think it has to be pretty tactical now for Lutsenko to win, because wherever Astana go and vice versa, Bahrain will go, and it's kind of looking at each other now. What do they do? Landa started the day here at 4 minutes and 20 seconds, so he isn't the ideal candidate to go. So just as I was expecting, Jess, there, don't wait to be attacked. Start the tactical battles now. Make sure you're in there. Ben O'Connor's there. You can see here that Sosa having to chase down Rodriguez, being brought into Van Sevenant. And if Bahrain and Astana start, the attacking and the instigating, then you can see just at the back here, and I think he's playing the game now, Simon Yates. And he knows how to play the game. Don't get drawn in. Make sure you follow the right ones, because if you follow all of them, you'll have no legs when it comes to the final. So I think it's going to get very, very tactical from now on all the way to the finish.
Well, that was a fascinating little moment, that as well. I wouldn't even call it an attack from Landa. It's more like, okay, I've got about 4 metres. I may as well press on. Let's just press on a bit and see what happens. It's as you say, Brian. It's very much riders looking around, sussing things out. They're all aware, exactly as you've said, that there's going to need to be some splits in here before they come to the finish.
It's more like you see at maybe a track sprint, in the velodrome, where it's getting tactical. Who's going to go, looking at each other. That's what it's going to be. It doesn't have to be the hardest of run-ins to the finish today. It is going to get very tactical. You might roll off the front. Other riders kind of sit up, and that can be a really interesting way to finish off this stage. It's not going to be the strongest man that can climb to the finish. It is going to be in rolling roads, good kind of sporting rolling roads, where it gets really, really tactical from the 14 in front.
Well, there is our defending champion, the only rider in this field that's won this race before, Miguel Angel López. And the Colombian riding with the number 1 on his back. He really hasn't put a foot wrong this race, although he has been left chasing solo winners. A couple of second places on stages 2. So we know he's in good form.
Just looking at Astana there, but the looks of things, they would possibly be happy. And that's the reason why Tejeda and Lutsenko are just, keeping it going. They don't want to be drawn into kind of tactical battle. They want to try and keep this kind of group together, because they know that, Miguel Angel López has got a couple of seconds and everybody else. He's the virtual leader. So, they don't have to kind of chase these seconds, but others have to chase the seconds, and, that's what they're relying on. So they'll keep on kind of rolling through and, just marking the moves of Bahrain. But I think Bahrain will start firing as soon. They'll start playing the tactical, and you've already seen it with Landa. It wasn't an attack, it was just a look around. And this is going to be a really intriguing run-in, and it's for the individuals that are in here, the Simon Yates, the Ben O'Connors, the Sosas. They have to think about it. Even Cepeda for Caja, they're in with a good chance of the stage and possibly doing something in general classification, but they have to be very kind of choosy and what wheels, who they follow, and conserve that little bit of energy.
Well, this is a slightly rolling false flat over the top of Gurafe, and then the riders are into about 25k downhill. They're going downhill as they make their way northeastwards, in fact, in the direction of Zújar and the Negratin Reservoir. Then they turn southwards and they start 2 more hills, which take them to the ramp to the finish. The ramp to the finish, downhill ramp, I should say, the slight downhill, starts with about 6k to go. It's very gradual, though, but it will mean that they hit Baza with a bit of speed. And this is looking back to our chasing group. There's Domenico Pozzovivo. I was going to make the point, I had it in my notes to make the point today, Brian, about what a good start to this race. First 3 days of this race, Pozzovivo and Simon Clark have had. The 2 riders Clark, who's 35, Pozzovivo we saw there, who's 39. You know, both of them former members of that now defunct Quebecer Next Hash team, who got their well, were able to salvage and save their professional cycling careers very late on this winter, and it seemed like the last three days they've been really motivated to make the most of it. There's Simon Clark in the middle there in that green jersey he's looking after for Alessandro Covi. We did mention it, didn't we? They've had a good start to this as they settle in. I mean, VIVO only signed for Entomarché Wanty-Gobert, the Belgian team, just a matter of weeks ago as well. So even in interviews yesterday, he was suggesting he's still only just adjusting to the new bike, the new kit, new equipment, but he seems to have adjusted well.
I think both Simon Clark and VIVO have had a difficult time over the last few months trying to find that team, and it does play a bit in effect, not just on your physical side, but on your mental side as well. And you know, it's clear to me they want to prove that, you know, and thank the teams for getting that contract, and I think they've done well so far. But sometimes in a race, if you don't have that kind of condition, then there's not a lot you can do about it. Both are talented riders, both are strong riders, but you know, maybe just missing that little bit of the last few months, that, you know, the motivation, especially to kind of trying to find a team, it always kind of plays on your mind. But I've also noticed as well, you know, I was kind of maybe not bigging them up yesterday, but they ride very, very well, and that's Husatel Euskadi, the team in orange. But they only have Soto in that chasing group, which means that you know, they've got, you know, the other 5 riders, and they had a couple of riders that were up there in the general classification. They've got 1 rider in that chasing group. They're not in this race today, which is a big surprise to me.
Yeah, they've been that ever-present force in our breakaways so far, haven't they, the boys in orange and black? And in fact, Soto is off the back of that chasing group at the moment, talking into the window of his team car. And getting some food in as well, by the looks of it. Now that's actually Luis Angel Mate, I think, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's Soto. You're right. You're right, Brian. Antonio Jesus Soto in that chasing group. I think we need to call them the peloton, but I'm presuming there are some groups of riders off the back of it. Simon Clark, there he is, indicating the throttle in that green jersey. And he has been consistently throughout his career, the 35-year-old. He's shown well in the one-week stage races. It's kind of his distance, isn't it, Brian? He's been very consistent across them. I've seen him ride very well in the Tour of Britain on a number of occasions. But he's finished in the top 10 in Tirreno Adriatico, 2nd as well in the Tour de la Provence, 9th in the Bink Bank Tour. So that kind of 5 to 7 day stage race seems to suit him well. And there we have young Mauri van Sevenen on the front. Go on, Brian. Sorry. He's
had a good career, Simon Clark. King of the Mountains, stage 1. I say Amstel Gold. You've mentioned a few other races, so he's had a, you know, maybe not a glittering career, but a good career. He's come here, and you know, he's come close. He's in that green jersey, but he's in the peloton at the moment, and you know, the gap, you know, 3:28. No real surprise, because look at the front group. They're all turning. I'm not saying they're all giving 100%, because I think a few of the individuals have to kind of save a little bit for the attacks that are going to come, but they're all turning, 14 of them, and you know, at the front of the peloton there's only about, you know, 4, maybe 5 riders turning, and you know, that says it all. It's all about the numbers, and there isn't enough of a chase behind to bring these riders back.
So as they take their turn on the front and roll through, it gives us a chance to remind you of who is in there. Carlos Rodriguez for Ineos Grenadiers just going through, and of course we cut the shot as soon as I start to roll through them. Rodriguez it was, following through the wheel of Harold Tejeda of Astana, Kazakhstan. Those 3 Astana riders there, and 4 Bahrain victorious. And this is Matteo Trentin, the super versatile rider. Must be so useful to any team he'd be in, Brian. Great all-rounder, good bunch sprinter, proper engine on the flat to rolling roads as well. And today, working for that man, Alessandro Covi, who so far has shown himself at his best in this race in the explosive uphill moments. These climbs today not really lending themselves to that kind of effort as we look at some pretty moody weather. Very moody weather in actual fact. It's a lot cooler on the Ruta del Sol today. Not even getting above 20 degrees. And as I mentioned, it's been an unseasonably warm winter. Very warm winter in the hottest part of Europe in Andalucía. And today just cooling off a little bit. And riding in the direction of that too, because we are skirting along the edge of the Sierra de Baza, and that is where those heavy clouds are. Let's hope it stays dry for that finale, particularly in that urban environment. Damiano Caruso, the next of those to go through. A few words being exchanged as well by the two teams that have the greatest numbers in here. It is interesting, Brian, you're right, the rider maybe inconspicuous by his size, Simon Yates, just sort of, I haven't seen him on the front too often. When he does come through, he's doing a nice quick turn, just hiding in the wheels. I think we'll see. I think you're right. I think you hinted at it, Brian. I'm going to see him try something at some point. We've got two more potential little launch pads. One that comes or tops out with about 18k to go, and one that tops out with only about 5 or 6k to go as well.
Well, he did it yesterday, didn't he? He instigated the moves, and he is more towards the back than towards the front. Any opportunity you've got of any excuse at all of just kind of getting in the back, just putting your hand up, just moving back, calling your car up, and just kind of hanging about the back more than the front. And rightly so. When you see that there's 4 Bahrain and 3 of Astana, that's half. Both these teams have half of this group in front of 14. So it's up to them to do more of the riding. For the individuals in here, they have to be kind of very selective and try and kind of save a little bit, because when you're up against 3 riders or 4 riders from the other teams, you cannot go with everything. And this run in will be about the tactics of the two teams of Astana and Bahrain Victorious, and you cannot go with every attack. So it's going to be a really interesting run in towards this finish. And as we see the front of the peloton here with Corbin Strong of Israel Premier Tech, Trenton's there. Bora Hansgrohe were chasing earlier on, but I think that the life has been sucked out this peloton now. The gap going up to 3:45, and I think no way back for them. So it's going to be about the 14 riders in front, and we are going to see the attack starting possibly sooner rather than later.
Jan Polans there, having a chance to just grab a word at the team car and a bottle too as well. It's worth noting as we watch the rider from UAE Team Emirates, of course, a world team. The only 2 riders not from world teams in our leading group are Christian Rodriguez, who, as I say, has ridden particularly well this week for Team Total Energies, and Jefferson Cepeda of Caja Rural, the 25-year-old Ecuadorian in the green and white, the green stripes, the white top of Caja Rural, multiple former national champion of Ecuador. And as I say, very exciting rider to watch. Rode a consistent, strong Vuelta España last year. And a rider to keep an eye on. He will. I would not be surprised at all to see him also trying to use some point in the run-in to clip off and try something. He is just that kind of rider. Can't help himself. While we're watching this gap hovering between 3.5 and 4 minutes for the group we're looking at right now in our yellow jersey, gives me a chance to mop up a couple of things from the last 2 days. I questioned yesterday what were the green bikes that Jefferson Cepeda and his Caja Rural team are riding, and I've had a few correspondents on Twitter, so thank you to you guys, mentioning that those lovely metallic green bikes, there we go, we can see Jefferson Cepeda on his at the front here, that light green fading into a dark green. Apparently they are MMR bikes, Spanish brand from Asturias in the north of Spain, and Chechu Rubiera apparently is the main race bike engineer and designer. Big brand apparently in cyclocross and mountain biking in Spain too. So that's what they are. I think really it's just the colour that I like, but they look absolutely wicked. Very smart. So let me remind you of the virtual general classification as it would stand should they roll over the line right now. Jack Haig, the rider who's just rolled through on the front, the Aussie, would be moving up to second. Christian Rodriguez of Team Total Energies, who has just previously rolled through, is at the back now with Simon Yates. He would move up to third on general classification, and Miguel Angel López would, of course, take over the yellow jersey. Now, that's highly likely to happen, but what gaps might crack open amongst this group? It would mean we'd end the day with Simon Yates in 7th, Wout Poels in 6th, and Carlos Rodriguez in 5th, with Ivan Sosa in between them in 4th place. But the group coming to the line in the size that they are, of those leading 14 riders, as Brian has suggested, I would agree, highly unlikely. Those moody skies behind them will do well to keep the end of this stage dry. I thought we were going to have a completely bone-dry and sunny Tour of Andalucía in the Ruta del Sol, but it's certainly cooler today. I think the riders will be thankful for that, because it got pretty hot towards the end of yesterday's stage.
The thing you have to consider, Jez, as well is tomorrow. I know they'll be concentrating on today, but tomorrow is an uphill finish. And so far in this race, of the riders that are in front, I think Miguel Angel López looks good. So you really don't want to leave it until, you know, tomorrow. There'll be other riders in here that will just be happy to just try and kind of win the stage. But if you're looking for the general classification, I think most of these riders want to put time into the likes of Ineos's Carlos Rodriguez and the likes of Miguel Angel López, and not leave it to chance tomorrow.
Well, it is worth reminding viewers there are no time bonuses available in the Ruta del Sol this year. No time trial either. Very simple stage race, really. 5 stages, seemingly all front-ended, with big climbs early on and then rippling climbs to take whatever's left of the main peloton to the finish. It's been pretty much the same format every day. Tomorrow, no different. Front-ended again, with 2 big second category climbs early on and then rolling terrain in between. And then, as Brian mentioned, this 7, maybe 8 kilometre long drag up to the finish tomorrow. And it's a drag that the race organisers believe may be decisive in deciding the final general classification. Bear in mind, we've gone over some 20k climbs today. It's not too much steeper than them, but the point being, I'd guess, Brian, is the fact that it comes at the very end. There's nothing to hold back for in terms of the next day. There's nothing to hold back for in terms of the stage. So whoever hits the bottom of that final 7k slope tomorrow, no matter how gradual it turns out to be, it can be an empty the tank job, or it should be an empty the tank job by the top, I'd have thought.
The thing is, I don't think you really, if you got an opportunity to tactically take some time back today, rather than kind of wait and do it, because on a hilltop finish, which we've got to get tomorrow, I'm not going to say mountaintop, but a hilltop finish, it's going to come down to the strongest of the climbers, and there might not be a lot between each other, but if you can gain some time tactically by going to the right move, putting time into a few of the kind of better of the climbers, and I know I say the better of the climbers, when you mentioned ahead of Sosa, López, Rodriguez, Landa, Haig, O'Connor, Van Sevenant, Cepeda, and the other Rodriguez, they're all good climbers, and that's why they're in this front group. But some of them might not want to have those options tomorrow. It depends on their tactics, it depends on how they're feeling as well. I would think that when this stage ends, if Bahrain victorious are not victorious, then they'll feel a wee bit aggrieved, because they have got 4 riders in here. I think Astana can say that maybe if they don't win the stage, as long as they're taking the leader's jersey, then they'll be happy. It's all the other teams, it's the other 7 riders in here that, how are they going to win the stage? How are they going to put themselves in a position to win the race? And it is going to kind of play out today as we start getting closer and closer to this finish.
Well, looking there across the flat plain on the outskirts of Garafe, away from the mountains, and we've come over some spectacular terrain. It's It's made a nice change today, actually, as we've made our way up through Granada, going northeastwards to roll out of the olive groves, because we've had so many olive groves the last 3 days. They've framed the picture beautifully on lovely smooth roads. The roads today, I've noticed, Brian, a little bit rougher in places. I can normally tell that because when we get the close-up shots from our camera motorbikes, it's getting bumped all over the place. Certainly as we've gone further and further into the desert-like terrain, it's got a bit bumpier for the riders. Tomorrow, talking of bumpy, we actually start in Jueza on the edge of the Sierras. The most northern of all 5 stages of the Ruta del Sol, all in the Jaén province as well, which is where the gravel race was that Alexei Lutsenko won last weekend. Very close to that, in actual fact, in its start. And Spain hoping they found their answer to Strada Bianca with that one. Quite a few of the riders in this race were in that, of course, including Lutsenko, who won it. And for the finish tomorrow, we head due northwards pretty much all the way, moving our way left and right as we do, east and west, but following along the edge of the national park in Cazorla to finish in Chiclana de Segura, going north, all the way north tomorrow, away from the sea, of course. Jefferson, Cepeda, right on the back of that string of 14 riders, shaking out the legs. Inside 25k to go now. And as you can see, back onto another long straight road for our chasing group, who are still... Actually, I think we may be looking at our leading group there, because we're now seeing an attack, Brian.
Yeah, we are. Caruso, López, Van Zevenant making an effort now, and you know, Rodriguez for Total Energies, and again, you can see that Sosa for Movistar chasing this down, and he has to, because if he sits up, just look at behind him. He's got Bahrain and Astana. So, you know, inside the last 25 kilometres, now the 2 teams with the numbers in front, you know, they've started to play, you know, the game now, and you can get drawn into it and make these efforts. So Sosa brings it all back together. And if another attack goes, will Sosa be able to do that again? There's only so many efforts you can make, and you know, there's still 20 odd kilometres to go. For a few of the individuals, they're kind of getting sucked in a little bit now. So it's, when you're in this situation, it's having a kind of level head, just picking and choosing who you're going to ride with. I think Jack Haig would be the best option for Bahrain. So maybe for Simon Yates, follow Jack Haig. But yeah, we're starting to see these kind of tentative attacks now, and this is not going to stop all the way into the finish. It's, you know, I think for definitely Bahrain, they want to instigate it. Mentioned just a little bit earlier that for Astana, they're kind of happy because they've got the race. In this situation, it's having a kind of level head, just picking and choosing who you're going to ride with. I think Jack Haig would be the best option for Bahrain. So maybe for Simon Yates, follow Jack Haig. But yeah, we're starting to see these kind of tentative attacks now, and this is not going to stop all the way into the finish. It's, you know, I think for definitely Bahrain, they want to instigate it. Mentioned just a little bit earlier that for Astana, they're kind of happy because they've got the race lead at the moment. Okay, it's only 2 seconds, virtual 2 seconds, but they can play the game a little bit more. But for all the individuals, they have to think before they start chasing things down, and that's twice now that Sosa for Movistar has kind of closed it down.
A confirmation that Alexei Lutsenko has now moved up into 2nd place on the King of the Mountains competition. John Baronetcha still leading that one, and hopefully for him, because he's ridden well the last few days, massing up points in that, he might be able to hang on to it tomorrow on our final stage. Brian, just looking at that as we watch Ivan Sosa now going through, both times when those little attacks and pushes have happened, yes, you're right, it's him that's closing it down, but it's also him that's let the wheel go. And he's a little guy, isn't he? Super lightweight climber. It strikes me that when the pressure is on at the front, that's where the elastic is snapping, right in front of Ivan Sosa. Damiano Caruso rode back to him once they came back together and had a little word with him. I'm not sure what that was about, whether it's to do with letting the wheel go or what, but the others didn't come round him either. They left Sosa to close the gap that had cracked open in front of him. All back together now, though. Let's see Luksenko rolling back down the outside of the group there, the Kazakh for Astana, Kazakhstan. Just having a look at the riders as he does so. And our defending champion, Miguel Angel López, still bandaged on his right leg from the crash he had on stage 1. On that dusty, gravelly right-hander. He rolls through 2.
Just got the confirmation on that last King of the Mountains. Luksenko did take it from Ben O'Connor, Lopez and Christian Rodriguez, which means that Luksenko moves up to seconds overall in that competition. Still 6 seconds, 6 points off Barrenetxea. So Caja can, kind of breathe a little bit. They'll still have the rider in that jersey with 21 points on offer tomorrow.
Well, that's a look across to the familiar site for tourists to this region of Gorafe and the mogul-like sandy desert on the edge of the mountains over to their left as the riders come down the descent. Still descending this 27, 28 kilometre long descent off the back of the Gorafe Pass. And they are riding northwards still, encircling Friela. And then they're going to make their way south in through the northern edge of Baza to finish right in the middle, really. And it is Simon Yates still. He's kind of slipping. He's just sort of slipping his way around a bit and always tends to be in that back third. Here we go. Another attack, though, down the out-hand side. Is that Luksenko going again? And it's being covered by Ben O'Connor closing across to it, Brian. Jefferson, Cepeda also itching to join them. Wout Poels now takes up the chase, but of course he's got a teammate there in the shape of Caruso. Caruso covering the move of Alexei Luksenko, the Kazakh.
This suits Ben O'Connor more than the others, and you can see that Wout Poels realised that with Ben O'Connor there and Luksenko there, that wasn't the best move for Bahrain victorious, and they wanted to have one of their kind of GC riders. It does look as if at the back of the group, Simon Yates was just looking at Jack Haig. Jack Haig could be their kind of card. So I don't think this will go. Ben O'Connor now has to think about what he does now, because it doesn't. I don't think that both Luksenko and definitely Caruso will not be given 100%.
Well, as you can see, they've met the bottom of that descent, and it's Adam Yates now kicking hard off the front to try and go across to them. That's not a surprise, is it? Because he's the lone rider there for his team. He'd been sitting and waiting, watching. He's hit them hard as well. Ripped right across that gap, the British rider.
Straight past. Straight past, because you could see that Sosa was the rider trying to close things down yet again. Every gap that's open, Sosa is the only rider propped on the fronts. This might not be the move. But I think Simon Yates has to think about this one. He's made the efforts, and it does look as if it's kind of closing down behind. So yeah, I can feel the kind of tension. You can see Rodriguez now going across the gap. Sosa hasn't got it now. He's already made a couple of efforts, and you can clearly see that he's starting to pay for them.
Well, let's not forget the Colombian Ivan Ramiro Sosa joined this race late on, filling in for Alejandro Valverde as we watch Simon Yates go again. You were right, Brian. We're going to see this all the way in, aren't we? Constant attacks. Riders testing their form, many of them for the first time this season. Ben O'Connor looks good. Really good, the Aussie. He's dropping Caruso there, just dropping him in his chase of Simon Yates. And there's gaps opening up down this group as well. Some of them, the likes of Wout Poels there and Landa feeling it, really feeling it at the back now. He's gone. I think he's gone for good by the looks. Super Domestic Deluxe, but not looking snappy right now. One man who is, though, is Alexei Luksenko, not just hoovering up points in the King of the Mountains competition, but winding his way across that gap.
Yeah, this is good for Rodriguez, for Total Energies, Ben O'Connor, and of course Simon Yates. Simon Yates a little bit further back than the other two riders. They were 10 seconds. Rodriguez from Total Energies.
I love watching Mauri van Sevenen because he doesn't look, there's very little smooth about what he does. It's absolute hammer time every time he's closing gaps. A wonderful rider to watch. The soul. Ben O'Connor.
You can see that
down.
Caruso and Lysenko not pushing on here because they've realised that the certain riders in here is going to benefit, and forced onto the back foot now. We're losing Landon. You can see that Barry and Victorious are having to shut this down themselves. So yeah, there's so many permutations when you get yourself in a move. It's looking to see who's there, who's not there, and unfortunately for Rodriguez, he's just about to get back on. He is really paying for all these efforts he's putting in, and I can't see him going on the attack. But yeah, the door's completely open now, man to man, toe to toe racing here all the way into the finish.
I think as well, Brian, this is where we see, look at this behind, this is where we see who is following team orders, who is thinking about the team, and who might be thinking about themselves, because I'm not suggesting there's any foul play there, but Miguel Angel López closed that gap down, drawing with him really the rest of that group. Although he's left Mauri van Sevenen with a little bit to do, López joining the group and coming with him pretty much everyone else, save this man, Ivan Sosa. There is a lot of pressure on him, Brian, as I say, coming in to fill the boots of the rather large boots of Alejandro Valverde, who's won this race 5 times, more than anyone else. Another attack going over the top, and the two teams who have the most riders in this leading group making their numbers count.
Oh, this is a danger for the individuals now, because like you say, Wout Poel's just going to cross there, and Poel started today at 16 seconds. Lysenko's there, but Lysenko's at 40 seconds, and he's looking round. He wants to go. He knows that this is good for both teams, both for Astana and for Barry and Victorious. This is what they wanted. Maybe not the right combination, because there is quite a considerable amount of time between both these riders in the general classification of about 34 seconds, or 24 seconds, sorry, between them in the favour of Wout Poel. So Wout Poel will be in a good position here. Lysenko has to kind of think about this one, but for all the individuals behind have to ride, and when they're riding behind, the team of Barry and Victorious with Jack Haig here and Miguel Angel López can just sit on the wheels.
Well, welcome to the last 15 kilometres of the Queen stage of the Ruta del Sol, this Vuelta Ciclista Andalucía, with me, Jez Cox, and Brian Smith. We have got a really select leading group of, well, it's 11 riders now, 11 or 12, something like that. We discount Mikel Landa, who's drifted off the back. The yellow jersey, Alessandro Covi, is in a group, the main peloton, I guess, or the remnants of the main peloton, 3 minutes 20. Senko, and there they are on your screen.
Yeah, you see that Simon Yates, you just put a dig in. They have to form a bit more of a reliance. You can see he's trying to get the individual riders to start riding. I think Carlos Rodriguez Varinius, he isn't doing anything at all, and with this happens, the gap is going to go up, and Haig and Miguel Angel López are going to get a free ride. It's up to the individuals to communicate with each other, and that's what Simon was trying to do there. He was trying to say to the individuals, forget about this. This race is going away from us. Both of the teams with numbers in the front group. But the interest for me now is what do Astana do, because there's 24 seconds between these two riders in the favour of Wout Poel. So Barry and Victorious are in a good situation. tight? Do Astana want to keep Miguel Angel Lopez within maybe 20 seconds of the overall lead, and then he goes tomorrow in the final climb and try and win the race? So there's all these permutations going on at the moment, and you can see that it's very difficult for the individuals. They have to commit, but they're not really kind of committing as a unit, and that's what they have to do. If they want to win this race, they have to commit as a unit.
And Ben O'Connor gave it a big, hard attack there. He likewise, just as the sole representative of AG2R Citroën, he is telling the others, just as Simon Yates was, come on, let's go, let's work for it. But it's not happening, though. And, of course, for good reason, because we know there are now 3 Bahrain victorious riders still in play, having dispatch with Mikel Landa, Jack Haig and Damiano Caruso, just covering things in there. They don't need to do anything at this stage. And then, of course, Tejeda and Lopez, all the while just sitting in, knowing they've got Alexei Lutsenko, who's in sparkling form. So we have another rise coming at the end of this long road here. Gradual ramp up the side of the hill you can see in front of us. And then the drop down northwards into Baza. Here are our 2 leaders. And thankfully for Lutsenko, he'll be getting plenty of shelter behind the big tall Dutchman. Wout Poels, former Team Sky super domestique, of course. Great climber, good all-rounder actually.
She's now half a minute, and I think Poels will have to do the majority of the work. I think for Astana, they won't want Poels to gain too much time, possibly by the finish, maybe 20 minutes, 30 seconds, maximum, I would think. So you might see Astana and Bahrain kind of roll a little bit in towards the finish, because they want to keep this gap close. But Ben O'Connor deciding that he wants to try and go across on his own. What you're getting is the individual riders are not talking, they're not communicating, they're not going, look, at least can I try and save the day, because the race is going out front with the 2 riders that are there. The stage is going away from them. Help each other. You saw Simon Yates talk to the other riders, but they're doing it not together, not cohesively. A couple of riders will go up, they'll get annoyed about the other riders that are sitting on. So they're not working well together, and that's suiting the Lutsenko and Poels. But Poels will be forced into doing the majority of the riding in front. I think where Astana are sitting now, they want to at least guarantee the stage win, but also they want to. I would rather have, Lopez well up there in the general classification. So even if you come into tomorrow, so say for instance, the 2 of them come to the finish together of Poels and Lutsenko. Well, Poels gains the overall lead. Lutsenko's at 24 seconds. But whereas, you don't want Miguel Angel Lopez to lose too much time, because you want to try and kind of keep him within about 20, 30 seconds of that overall lead. So, the thing is, Wout Poels started the day at 16 seconds and Miguel Angel Lopez at 8 seconds. So for now, you're still looking at Wout Poels gains the overall leads. Miguel Angel Lopez is only about, 20 seconds behind him, if that, in the general classification. And also Lutsenko moves up. So, they've got opportunities tomorrow. So you're not just thinking of today, you're thinking of tomorrow and what the GC is going to look like. So for Astana, you can clearly see that Lutsenko not doing a lot of the work. But what they want to do is try and keep this gap down to the chasing group, so that Lopez is still within striking distance in tomorrow's stage as well.
Yeah, it stayed like this as well. It would also see Jack Haig moving up, so we're potentially looking at a really good day for Bahrain victorious. So into the final 10 kilometres, and there is Jack Haig, who I've just mentioned, the gingery hair with the number 42 on his back for Bahrain victorious, the Aussie, who is looking at, if he can stay like this in this group, getting into that top 3 on the general classification at the end of the day. 1 rider dropping off the back. I'm not sure that isn't Sosa again, Brian. He's going through the ringer today. looking at the blue jersey. No, it's not. No, in actual fact, it's Tejeda. Tejeda's done a lot in there for the good of his team, so maybe being dispatched at the right moment. And there is the last mountains classification. Confirmation of Lutsenko taking that one. Alexei Lutsenko started the season in great form. As I mentioned, getting the win. Same part of Spain, but very different kind of terrain and very different kind of racing too. By the looks of it, Harold Tejeda has made his way back on, or nearly back on. He's trying to, knows that he might still be able to be of some help in there, I guess, to Miguel Angel López. And still Simon Yates marshalling the back of that very select leading group. He's a nice looking climber, Tejeda, isn't he?
He is, but when you've got numbers in the front group, you're kind of forced into doing the majority of the riding, and so you should. See this, with a rider in front, why is Miguel Angel López, putting an effort in here? He's sitting Wout Poels, now virtual leader on the roads, but now it's 23 seconds. That is only 15 seconds in the virtual overall between himself and López. He can do that in tomorrow's stage, so that's what I'm saying. Astana thinking Lutsenko stage, keep López in it. He can maybe take the jersey, off Wout Poels if it finishes like this. So they want to try and kind of keep it close. They don't want Poels to gain 1 minute, and this is what's happening now.
They've still got a little bit more climbing to do there as well. Ben O'Connor doing well to get back on, using, wouldn't you know it, Ivan Sosa to do likewise, who's been seesawing his way on and off the back. Wout Poels working hard. And I'd be interested to see, we're being told 23 seconds. You can see on your screen there, folks, at home. I wouldn't mind seeing a visual shot of it to get a clear indication of that, because they are nervous. Lutsenko's still looking over his shoulder. And of course, the more vehicles they have between them, as that gap gets closer to 30 seconds, they've got just the Shimano neutral service car between them and a motorbike. They won't want much more than that, because there is the gap back to our now split again chasing group. 3 riders gone clear from that one.
Yeah, looks like Simon Yates again, and he's got with him Christian Rodriguez. So we'll see it again, the attacks as it starts to kind of break up again. But Cepeda now goes, you get Caruso chasing after him, and then it kind of splits up even more. So no cohesion in the group behind. You just see the small group. Van Sevenant is there, and still saying 24. It looked a little bit more as we kind of pan back, but yeah, the individuals having to get involved here of Cepeda, Rodriguez are really kind of trying to kind of push on, and this is where you want to be in the front, of course, because of the kind of attacking nature of the group behind. You can kind of roll through and control your effort. Back in the group behind, it's kind of stop-start attacking, and that kind of really nips at the legs.
I have to admit, as you were watching the front end of that group, Brian, my eyes were drawn to the back, and poor old Ivan Sosa once again winding his way back on. Resilience personified in pedals, that. There he is. He just keeps getting chipped off the back and goes, no, I'm going to come back on again. Keep going. Good man. Great riding by the Movistar rider with the number 16 on his back, 16. Jefferson Cepeda goes again. I said this would happen today. I knew. The minute he gets anywhere near his drops, he just can't help himself, and he'll keep doing this as long as he can. Jefferson Cepeda, but it's being closed down by a rider who has really impressed me this week, Christian Rodriguez of Total Energies. No doubt fortified by the fact that he's riding on home turf and leading as the best Andalucian rider, but really acquitting himself well, the Team Total Energies rider. So we are now just starting the long descent into the finish. These are the final 6 kilometres of the Queen stage of the Ruta del Sol with me, Jez Cox and Brian Smith. You're watching Mauri van Sevenant, the Belgian, for Quickstep Alpha Vinyl, trying to kick away from what is now the second group of what was originally our leading group of favourites, because we have 2 riders clear, Alexei Lutsenko of Kazakhstan and the Dutchman Wout Poels of Bahrain victorious. Behind those 2 who've settled into 2-up time trial mode, this lot are knocking chunks out of each other and taking it in turns to chip off the front. Mauri van Sevenant the next of those to do so, but they're going to have to be going some to close the gap to these 2 who are on full charge, heading northwards, ready to sweep southwards into the finish in Baza in Granada province. And there we are, our 2 leading riders. Alexei Lutsenko covered moves well today and has looked good, as he so often does. Powerful, compact built climber, and quite trying to stay clear. It's not going to happen though. He's been closed down. Is this another opportunity for Ben O'Connor to go? Damiano Caruso recognise it because they know that O'Connor wants to get away from this group and gain time. So does Simon Yates, though, who goes again. Simon Yates, riding for the Australian Team Bike Exchange Jayco, has kicked hard another time. That's probably his, what, 3rd or 4th attack today, Brian?
Yeah, he's been trying as hard as he can, but it's always very difficult when 2 of the teams with numbers are in front. In this gap at 37 seconds with 5 kilometres to go now, and I know that Lutsenko is moving up in the general classification, but 24 seconds is quite a bit to get back in tomorrow's stage, especially with the Wout Poels. Probably kind of equal, and when it comes down to climbing, in fact I would probably think that Wout Poels would be the better climber, and these all come into the thought process of the sports directors behind, but you might see in the run in the last 5 kilometres that Lutsenko starts to kind of sit on a little bit more.
Well, it's the other Rodriguez having a good dig now. Carlos Rodriguez, the Spanish rider for Ineos Grenadiers.
Kind of go on the attack. He's been quite quiet, kind of saving himself. Is that because he's a bit tired? But you have to force yourself to do something and close a few gaps. Maybe he is feeling it a little bit, but you cannot let the general class more than just kind of rolling through, but Lutsenko just kind of doing a turn. I think if I was Astana, I wouldn't want to give Poels too much time.
It once was, so I wonder if it could be the local riders have got a little bit more insight into what they have coming tomorrow.
I think it's important for all of these riders to keep this gap down to the 2 riders in front. If you don't feel brilliant today, then you could feel better tomorrow. And we saw what happened in the last stage of the L'Avenir with Carlos Rodriguez. So, yeah, keep your options open for the GC.
Yes, that was an incredible final stage there. Carlos Rodriguez was leading by himself, desperately trying to take the end. Tobias Johannesson.
So, yeah, keep your options open for the GC.
Yes, that was an incredible final stage there. Carlos Rodriguez was leading by himself, desperately trying to take the overall lead and the win in the Tour de l'Avenir. In the end, Tobias Johannesson, the Norwegian rider, only just salvaged his overall lead coming into that stage in the yellow jersey. But what an incredible ride. ride by Carlos Rodriguez in last year's Tour de l'Avenir. He is a big future star, we suspect, particularly watching him on that day. It was an incredible ride. Very unlucky in a way, really, not to take it, because it was a ride deserving of the overall win in the Tour de l'Avenir. If you look back at the previous winners of that race, it goes to show just how important it is as a predictor of future Tour de France success, no less. And Christian Rodriguez is flicking his elbow aggressively on the front of that group, trying to get others to come through. Of course, he is one of those solo riders from a solo team, and we are into Baza. It's going to be a battle between these two, and it's going to be a fascinating one, because Lutsenko, you would suspect, Brian, or I would suspect, tell me if I'm wrong, has...
I'd expect Lutsenko's been doing less than Wout Poels. Wout Poels has got some sort of finish, but yeah, the favourite for me is Lutsenko, and I think Astana have had a good day, probably winning the stage and having Miguel Angel López, number one, you know, close in the general classification, could be as close as will have, by the looks of it, the yellow jersey in Wout Poels.
Yep, Poels will have a good idea of that already. Nice to see a crowd out in Baza here to welcome the race in. I think Wout Poels not entirely sure which way they were going there at that point. Lutsenko getting it right though, Poels following on the wheel. And I'd have thought Wout Poels would want to come from behind here. They've got a bit of time to play with. We're not seeing time gaps at the top of the screen. They're nervous though. Wout Poels knows this is about the jersey now, doesn't he? So he's rolling through. In a way, he's going to end up there, I guess, Brian. He's going to end up on the front because he needs to keep pressing on.
Yeah, it's all about time with Wout Poels more than anything. You could see that he to leading this one out.
Well, he is watching Alexei Lutsenko. They're coming into the barrier section now. Though Wout Poels is still open and going hard. Lutsenko waiting to come off the wheel. Can he make it? As Brian said, tired legs, but he's making it count. Alexei Lutsenko is going to have to dip for this one if he wants it. Wout Poels on the line. What a deserving ride. Does that give him the general classification? Don't forget, no time bonuses either. Christian Rodriguez has opened up. Mauri van Severen on the left as well. Those two are going to dip for the final podium place on the day. Two, by the looks of it, Simon Yates trying to wring himself out. Mauri van Severen, a deserving third place after a battling ride. Jefferson Cepeda off the back of that group, having attacked late on. Well, and it's a good win for him. It'll be his 20th professional victory, I do believe.
Poels did the right thing. He kind of pushed on, and you know, he was the person that accelerated first. And Lutsenko had to make up just over a bike length to try and kind of